Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Ghost Biker Garage. I am your host, the Ghost Biker, and we're here at the end of our Women's History Month. And I feel like we've had just an amazing month with some wonderful guests. We talked to the ladies from Paranormally Blonde the first week. We had the beautiful ladies from Steel City Ghost Hunters on the second week. And of course, Miss Gettysburg herself, Pamela Berry. And then, last week we had Miss Constance Payne. And so we've had it's been a great month to have 5 different Thursdays to cover some really awesome women. So this week is no different. We're going to be wrapping up the month with my friend Sara Jane. She's one part of Paranormally Blonde and is the co-founder of VP Paranormal. But we're going to be actually talking tonight about Reiki and energy healing. So we're super excited about that because that's a topic that I've had a lot of people reach out to me and express interest in, and also the way she uses it with the paranormal as well. So we're going to get into some really great topics tonight. But before we do, want to say hello to a couple people over here in the chat room. Want to say hello to Janet and to Sandy, Dr. Sumner, Fabian, and Carl. Lee, we've got a lot of people over here. So, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Like I said, it's going to be a great show. Just to go ahead and kind of talk just briefly about a few things that are coming up on April 23rd. We've got Enigma Cons at St. Albans Sanatorium, which really, really looking forward to. That's going to be the full day of presenters and then also a paranormal investigation there at St. Albans. I think tickets may be sold out for that, but I'm not completely sure if all tickets or if it's just for the ghost hunt. So definitely go check out Enigma Cons and see if there's any tickets left. Come listen to myself speak. We've got it's just a full packed day of some great speakers, and we'll probably be doing I did a live investigation from there for a couple hours last year, which was a whole lot of fun. So I'm going to try to do that again this year because St. Albans, I mean, such a cool place. Also, at the historic Scott County Jail, we just wrapped up Women's History Month there with our Women's History flashlight tours and also our girls only ghost hunts. All of that was very popular. We're leading into this month. We're kicking off spring into tourism. So we've got a lot of really cool things planned, kicking off the spring tourism season. We've got a full list of flashlight tours on the historic Scott County Jail website and Facebook page. We've also got several ghost hunts. A couple are already sold out, but we still have tickets to a few others. I'm just going to quickly, before we go on live here with our guest, I'm just going to quickly pop over to the historic Scott County Jail, can't even talk this evening, website here and talk just briefly about a couple things that's going on. If you want to check out our events section, you can either scroll down on the main first page and click on some of these really cool upcoming events. The paranormal research study that's going through May 31st, our blessing of the bikes, which is going to be on April 16th, and of course our after dark tours. We've got a ton of after dark tours with public ghost hunts, flashlight tours, and private investigations all through the month of April. But I wanted to talk just a second about our blessing of the bikes that's coming up on April 16th. We're hoping to really fill that parking lot up. We've been advertising all over the state, and this week we're going to be this week and this weekend we're going to have posters and flyers up all over the county and surrounding counties for this. It's going to be April 16th at noon. The jail opens at 9 a.m. that day, but the blessing of the bikes is going to start at noon. So come kick off Easter weekend as well as the spring riding season with a blessing of the bikes. We've also got the Harold Young Memorial Scholarship, which is going to take place in May, on May 21st. And so, again, you guys have heard me talk about that, and you really showed up last year. This scholarship, it's named in honor of my dad, and it creates a scholarship for a Scott County High School student who is going into the field of science. So we're giving away a $1,000 scholarship this year, which we will be giving away on the day of the Dart Run. And, we hope to raise a lot more money to give a greater scholarship next year. So we'll have a little more information about that at the end of the show. But, and like Dr. Sumner says here in the comments, www.historicscottcojail.com. That's where you can find all of the information on our website there, and just watch for a lot of different events and stuff that's coming up. So I'm going to go ahead and bring tonight's guest on, because I know we've got a whole lot to talk about. And, I know that, like I said, you folks have been sending questions and comments. So if you do have a question, please feel free to type it over here in the comments. If you don't mind, please put it in all caps, just so I don't miss, your comment and everything. And once we get to a break in the conversation, then we'll pull it up and we'll get right to it. So anyway, want to go ahead and bring on my friend, Sara Jane.
Hi.
Hey, and you look like you are in just the most peaceful place for tonight's conversation.
Right? Like, could this have not worked out any better? We moved over, Paranormally Blonde moved over to UNX. So we're live every Monday, and we were new. And so I was juggling the senior spring break scenario, and my senior wanted to go to Sedona, and it was like beautiful. It was like a perfect place to be to talk Reiki with you. So here I am in beautiful Sedona.
Yeah, so, first off, thank you so much for taking the time out of your trip to come
Oh
on
my
and
gosh.
talk
Always.
with us. And like I said, putting that beautiful background in there behind you, it's just absolutely perfect. So you're originally from Michigan.
I was born in Michigan, grew up in Texas, have been to Sedona once, and this is my second time. And now this is a hard decision: Tennessee or Arizona. I don't know which way to go here. I kind of get that. I get that warm, fuzzy feeling in Arizona as well, but hard not to in Sedona, right?
Of
So,
course. Well,
yeah.
you just got to come back to Tennessee, and that way you
Yes,
can make a full
that's right.
complete comparison.
This is true. Well, it needs to be a very good, well thought out decision, right? So we'll spend a little time in both places, and yeah. So, but thank you so much for asking me to come on and talk about something that I don't often get to talk about, but I'm excited to share that with you.
Absolutely. So, like I said, we are going to be talking about Reiki and everything, but let's talk about, because I know some folks saw you earlier this month on the show. Talk about your background and,
Mhm.
Paranormally Blonde, your team, and really how you kind of started on this journey.
I have two older sisters, and we've always been into scary movies and ghost stories. And so, we started our team alongside everybody else, and have been doing that for 20, 25 plus years. And, when we moved over to social media, I got to meet amazing people such as yourself. And I was asked to do a podcast, and that's how I met Dee Dee. I was social media friends with Dee Dee. I didn't really, I would see her here and there, but didn't really know her. So we were both asked to join one particular person to do a podcast, and that was about a year. And then the person that had asked us, she has a full plate, and she was like, I just, it's hard to juggle it all.
Mhm.
I mean, this stuff takes a lot of time. And so she was like, I have to step away from the podcast. But Dee Dee was like, I kind of still want to do it. Do you? And so we decided to form Paranormally Blonde, and we've been doing that now for over a year. And you know, it's been an incredible journey. And then there's all the little subsets of paranormal that you kind of start to explore. And for me, finding Reiki was kind of that pretty, like a really good sweet spot, because my mom was very much more metaphysical. She liked the angel stuff, the astrology, the energy healings. And so when I kind of discovered this and took the time to learn it, it was like a really good, I think, just adding another piece of equipment or tool to paranormal. So yeah, so here I am.
So which came first, the Reiki or the paranormal?
Paranormal. Yeah. But when I paranormal probably formally, but I think I've always had a little bit of that metaphysical thing always in the background, because that was something that my mom always liked to do. So I think when I started to explore it, it didn't feel new to me, but like probably 10, almost 11 years ago, I started to delve into Buddhism. I am not a strict Buddhist, but daily practices, and the meditations. And so when Reiki kind of showed itself to me again, I went more traditional. I do the traditional Usui Reiki. So it's the Japanese form. It's not as, I don't want to say it's not as spiritual, because the entirety of Reiki is spiritual. But it is definitely the traditional Usui. So, I think that I think it was just a natural rollover, in my opinion. I think it was bound to happen eventually with the paranormal, and then getting into the metaphysical more.
Okay. So I know I'd seen some comments from some different folks where I'd been sharing this, that, they were really interested in the show because they're looking to get more into Reiki. We may be kind of basic
Yeah.
in a little bit that a lot of people, may already know, but I know there's quite a few people on here
Mhm.
that may not know. Let's talk a little bit about, about what Reiki is, and the different types.
Sure. So, when I had one experience with Reiki, and it was done through like a kind of like a psychic studio, and I didn't love it. I'm not gonna lie, I did not love the experience itself. And I'm not bashing it, it just didn't feel right for me. Fast forward probably 6 months, maybe 8 months, I joined a goddess circle, and there was one woman in there who was a Reiki master, and so I said to her, I would love to try Reiki with you. And she was like, sure, we can do three sessions, one a week. She goes, that's how I like to start it. And that is usually how most Reiki masters or anybody practicing Reiki will do sessions with you. They like to do especially the first time, three, one a week. And she's like, and then we can go from there. And it was such a profound experience for me, that she was definitely, she was traditional, but maybe still for me a little too much for me. I loved the experience, but like kind of everybody has their way. There is no right or wrong way with Reiki. But I wanted to learn about it. So I searched out a course, and you can go to yoga studios, you can go to different metaphysical stores. You could also take these courses in a weekend. But I searched out a course, and I took about 8 or 9 months to study it. And it was just the traditional Usui Reiki. So basically what that is, you know, our bodies are natural healers, right? Like this is what our bodies are meant to do. And as, we evolved, and, technology comes around, we're really distracted, and you stop listening to your body. And we're so, we have all this to do. I gotta do this for the house. I gotta do this for the kids. I gotta do this for my spouse. It's like a constant, you just never stop and listen, right? How many times do you get an ache and you're like, I got to do this right now. I don't have time for that. Well, your body's trying to tell you what it needs, and we keep ignoring it. So Reiki is this amazing opportunity to stop for 45 minutes to an hour and to listen to what your body needs. And you work with the meridians, you work with your chakras, and it's a basic meditation to stop, be still, hear what your soul needs, what your body needs. Ask Reiki to come in, and it knows where to go, whether you feel it or you do feel it. It's doing its job. And after those sessions, if you're willing to honor what your body and your mind is telling you, you can heal yourself pretty well. I mean, I don't want to say, I think adding that to Western medicine is hugely beneficial. I think sometimes we take too many pills because we just don't want to have to sit and, take the time to work on ourselves, what our body is telling us. So it's a quick fix, right? But it's not.
Mhm.
And so I think Reiki gives you that ability to do actual natural healing. And you still may need the aid of some medications, but what I have seen with what I have done in the last 4 or 5 years, it can be pretty mind blowing to see, the need to stop taking certain medications because you're listening to your body. You might eat different, you might sleep different, you might exercise more, you'll rest more, and that's all your body needed.
Yeah, because just getting out of balance
Out
sometimes
of balance.
can cause so many problems, you know?
Yeah.
I know I struggle with anxiety and then that just leads down to and I'm a type A busy person anyways, you know? And so, it's one of those things where, uh, just taking the time to stop
Mhm.
and take that hour, if you don't have an hour, take that 30 minutes, but take
Mhm.
some time, just how important that is to take the time, stop, calm your mind,
Right.
just the benefits that can come from that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, here's the other thing, it doesn't hurt. So even if you're adding it for something that could, you know, if you're in a situation that maybe you can't get to a medication or you're out of a medication and you need to have that moment to just take a breath, sit down, and I don't want people to walk away thinking that, I do believe that it needs to be mixed. Western and Eastern medicine can work beautifully together and in harmony. I don't subscribe to all one or the other. I really don't. But I think that what I witness, and especially with social media and with myself, I mean, I can just speak for myself. You know, when I get out of whack and I stop for a minute and I go into my Reiki meditations on a more regular, it takes me no time to understand where that has come from, where that block or where that unbalance, you know, chakra may be. Because we're getting all sorts of things thrown at us with social media and trying to do too many things. So for me, I find the benefits are just they're too great to not add it to your day. And it takes not a lot of practice. It's just doing it. It's saying I'm going to do this practice daily or 3 times a week, and I think that's where I feel the worst when I have somebody that comes for an in-person session. um like what I witness would be too many people not thinking they're worthy of that time. They think everything else and everyone else needs their time. And so they don't put themselves first. And I'm a big, you got to put yourself first. And that's not selfish. You can't pour from an empty cup. And
Yep.
so, by the time somebody comes to my table, they're a pretty empty cup. So,
And that's something that you've said to me before that's really kind of resonated with me is you can't pour from an empty cup. And that's so true. That is so
mhm,
true because how often do we spread ourselves thin and then continue to try to, it's just like stretching that rubber band out, once it gets to where you've just got those little
mhm.
frays holding it together, it's eventually going to snap. And so once something like that snaps, it's really hard to
Well, here's
to
the
get
thing.
back.
When you feel that first pain or that first twang of something, the reality is that's when it should be dealt with. Now, obviously there are times where you can't, maybe you have to set it aside for a few minutes, but every time you keep taking that break from not acknowledging that pain, it just sets you further back. And then now you're working on worse things. You're working on resentment, right? You're working on feeling like nobody pays attention to you. And that's where, for me, that's what I like about the traditional Usui Reiki, is because you're talking about Buddhist undertones. So you absolutely have to take care of this. You have to. And it really does start, the mind body, the soul. If you're not listening, and again, I say these things because I work on them. I know I practice what I preach. And I am pretty good about being able to say, I lost. I just had this, in the last couple of weeks where I knew I was spinning out of control on somewhere in the 7 main chakras, right? Like it just, you could tell, I could tell People around me could tell. And so, it's like, okay, see, why are you ignoring that? Why it's nobody else's responsibility. It's my own responsibility to stop and say, what needs your attention and what needs focus. And, there's a Buddhist saying that, you should meditate every day for 15 minutes. And if you don't have 15 minutes, you should meditate an hour. And a lot of people will say, well, I don't get that. And it's like, because the reality is this: you have the time, you don't want to make the time. So if you don't have 15 minutes, you should force yourself for that hour. You will realize you need that 15 minutes every day. So sorry, the helicopter tours are going on.
So when how much do you meditate, or how many self meditations sessions do you do a day now versus when you first started?
Okay, so honestly, I am human and I am distracted as well. So, and I don't live, in the mountains of Tibet, which I would love to, at some point. So when you first begin, you do it a lot because you want to understand, so it was daily, it was morning and it was night. And then sometimes I would do it during the day, especially when you first start getting certified. It gets pretty exciting. But I don't like to do it to myself.
Mhm.
So I do meditate, but I will be honest. Um, I like to take that selfish moment, and I have somebody that I use for my Reiki sessions. I just like to let go and let somebody else take the controls. I can do it, but I think that sometimes it's just good to, you know, that person that, I don't know. I just like to be on the table. I'm not gonna lie. I just
Well,
so yeah.
I was hearing listened to somebody speak. It was actually the other day. I was listening to a podcast and they were talking, and they were saying that a lot of the time the Reiki practitioner
Mhm,
gets just as much out of it as
mhm.
the person that's
Absolutely,
having the Reiki done.
absolutely. And I think that's the one thing about Reiki, compared to a lot of energy healing, is that the reality is, while you're practicing or doing a Reiki session on somebody, you are not going to pick up their energy. So that's not what Reiki is about. So Reiki simply is, you have somebody there. They're using you as the tool, the practitioner as the tool, because the practitioner is the one that practices every day, or should be practicing every day, and you're calling on universe to share Reiki energy, and then you're allowing the person on the table or distant to share in that Reiki with you. So let's just say, like, I'm the pendulum because I practice it, that's swinging on a steady right swing, and the person on the table is kind of all over the place. So the goal is to get their pendulum to swing with mine. So it's not like my pendulum swinging like this, theirs is all over, and then mine's going to be like this. That's really not how Reiki works. And that's why many people choose Reiki as their choice of energy healing as a practitioner, because there are some energy healings out there, and I am not well versed in a lot of them. But what you see is somebody, real or not real, taking on whatever that person and feeling like they're going to carry that load. So there is something very unique and calming. But again, it's forcing me as well to go into that meditation of calmness. So I do walk away feeling, just as good. I can sometimes get tired, but that's also telling me, I did get something out of it, and now honor what that is. Sometimes I get really hungry, sometimes I get really sleepy, you know, and you just do what your body says. So,
Well, just speaking on some of those other forms of energy healing, that
mhm,
would have to be quite a heavy load for somebody if someone was essentially, I don't
mhm,
know if it would be sort of an empathic thing or what, but
mhm,
taking on that energy themselves. Because
mhm,
if one person can't bear it, I can't even imagine how someone else
mhm.
taking it on, how difficult that would be.
Yeah, and I think, just speaking from, and again, I'm only as educated as I am about Usui Reiki, but I will say this. I think, and it's what one reason why I didn't like my first experience with Reiki. And I try to tell this with people that I work with distantly or in person, which is, you are doing the work. Okay. So
Mm,
you are not drawing from me. You are just using me as the tool to find your calm. So you guys are the ones doing the work. And I feel like what I witnessed with my first Reiki experience was it kind of was about her and
Mm.
her psychic ability and the things she saw and what she needed me to do. What I hope with my sessions is that you realize you're the magical person, you're the healer. I'm not the healer, I am the practitioner that you're using as your tool for your healing. So you're self healing. And so I always want to make sure that person realizes just how, magical and amazing they are. And, that although we might have had a connection, and I've had some very unique and profound connections with people, but it's still them. This wasn't my moment to say, look at me, I'm a psychic, I'm going to tell you all this amazing stuff and you're going to do what I say. I always say I am your first step, and if you choose to do this with me, I'm honored to do it. It is humbling to be witness for somebody during a Reiki healing, but I'm simply the first step. And so when you leave that session, if you walk out going, okay, well, I'm all good, that's not how that works. And I think that's kind of where people are though today. They think they're going to walk into these sessions, and I've seen it sold this way. Come in, you'll feel amazing, and you can walk out within 45 minutes. You'll be, whatever was on you is gone. And it's like, that's not how that works. See, now you have to go home and you have to listen to you and you have to do the work. I'm just a tool. I always hate saying that because it just sounds hysterical. Like I'm a tool. So
Do you think that's a big part of the problem, is that there is the misunderstanding, and then also sometimes the practitioner makes it about themselves versus
Um, I mean, I can't speak for everybody. What I've seen, let's just talk about where are we in this world today, right?
Mhm.
We want our groceries delivered. We want, um, Amazon delivered. We're gonna have everything has to be convenient and quick for us. And we always say what, like, so we can save time. But what are we saving time on? Because we're not using that extra time that you're saving to listen to what your body needs. You're only adding on more and more things. So I do feel that some of the healing that I've seen offered and some of the things that I've witnessed with other practitioners myself is that they're offering a quick fix, and I don't offer that. It's never a quick fix. I think, if you want to heal, it takes time. Sometimes it could take a couple weeks. Sometimes you could kind of, for me, when I first did it, for my first personal sessions, those 3 weeks were rough, and not rough in the way of you can't handle it, but they were interesting and rough. And you have to listen to what your body and your mind is telling you. And had I not done that, why would you put your body, like, why are you, here's the perfect example with Reiki. And this was taught to me through the person that taught me Reiki. It's like you're a pot on the stove top, and you haven't been boiled for a while. And so now you're going to have a Reiki session. And as it starts to boil, all that stuff on the bottom rises to the top, right? And so now you've got to get things to blend and to be balanced and all that kind of good stuff. And if you don't, you kind of have a mess, right? So you don't want to keep bringing something to a boil and just leaving it and then letting it simmer and then bring it back up. I mean, you have to do the work. So
yeah, and it's like, Travis Martin says it's definitely not a one and done sort of
no.
thing. Um, so, um, so if somebody's not ever had a Reiki session,
Hmm. Hmm.
what can they expect, or what is that like? Can you kind of walk us through? I know everyone
Sure.
is different, but
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody's different. And my first thing would be have zero expectations. Don't come into any session with an expectation. Um, what I do try to explain to somebody for the first time, whether it's distant and or in person, is it's, if nothing else, you will have this 45 minutes to an hour where we're going to sit and connect, and you're going to be still. And so um, usually how I would do it is, you would kind of lay down. I ask everybody, both distant and in person, take some deep cleansing breaths. I usually leave for a few minutes to do my own little preparation. And then when I come back, I do call on God, and I work with goddesses. So goddesses, ancestors, loved ones, spirit guides, guardian angels. And then, as I ask those to come forward and yours to come forward, I reach out to universe, ask universe to, have Reiki flow, and then whoever's on the table or distantly can share with me. And I think for the most part, the goal is just to get everybody to listen to themselves. Now you can talk to me during, you can not talk to me during, it doesn't matter, even distantly, if somebody wants to do it over the phone, or if they want to do it over Zoom. I've not done that yet, but or if you just want to text, you're not breaking any concentration. You don't break Reiki energy flow at all. Once you do ask for it, universe doesn't make mistakes. It's one of the greatest lessons I've learned. And so once you let it flow through, I think most people find a pretty good relaxation. But what you can sometimes experience would be anything from colors. You can have cold and hot feelings. You can have straight up visions. I've had several people in person have extreme visions that they weren't aware where they were coming from. You can have visitations. And then just a general, most people I think kind of feel like they just let go. That kind of is the more general consensus that I've had, is that most people feel like, okay, this is kind of what I felt. And then, I'll usually say, if you want to talk to me during or after, you are more than welcome. Sometimes people fall asleep. I kind of love that. I think that that's a beautiful thing, because it's probably what most people's bodies need more than anything. And then, they can tell me what they experienced, or, if they want to know what I experienced. Again, I always make the statement, I am not a psychic, nor do I claim to be, but there are times that there is a connection, and I think that is very human. And especially during an energy healing, you're sharing energy. So you are as intimate as you can be. And so, people can have you can have shared visions, you can have shared experiences. And yeah, I think it's just a general, and there is no right or wrong way. And I think if you had nothing, it's just as profound, and it works. And I think I've only had that a couple times where maybe, if somebody doesn't see a color, or if somebody doesn't have a vision, pardon me, they might feel that they weren't all in. But the reality is, I promise you, once Reiki takes the reins, you are all in. It knows what you need, because it's you. You know what you need. It might just not be to the front of your mind at that point.
Do you think that's probably one of the hardest parts, is the fact that, whether it be because of technology, or
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
kind of the instantaneous nature of how the world is today. Do you
mm-hmm,
think that's one of the most challenging parts with what you do, is the fact that, you know, most people have a hard time being
mm-hmm,
still or being
mm-hmm.
in that moment?
I do. And it's funny, because I will offer, or remind, like, hey, I can do Reiki with you in person or distantly. And it's funny, because when I put those offers out there, I can get anywhere from 4 to 6 people saying, I would like to do that. And on more than a handful of occasions, those 4 to 6 people bow out. And I really do believe we are just so, we have all of us are very guilty of that, and it's hard not to be. And it's why I always say to people, I practice Buddhism. I'm not a Buddhist, because I don't know how you can live in the Western world like this and be a complete Buddhist. I mean, you really, it's hard. um, so I think, yes, I think that too many people, we don't prioritize ourselves, or we don't think that it is important enough to stop. I'm a big believer in naps, which is
Mhm.
pretty much a form of Reiki. So if I feel tired and I need to close my eyes for 15 minutes, and I'm not driving or something, yeah, I'm taking a nap. That's just, I think as I've gotten older, what I've learned is, we just we ignore too much. We ignore too much of what's going on in our body. Yet we're trying to control everything around us, and that's the one thing we don't have. We have zero control of that. But the thing that we can control, we walk right away from. So, yeah, and do I think technology plays a part in that? Oh, hell yeah. I think that this is such a time suck. Like you don't like I do have a friend that's like, well, I don't have time to meditate. Well, I know you do because I know you're on Facebook for hours. So the reality is you do have 15 minutes to meditate. You choose not to. But then you also choose to have those complaints that you don't have time or you're not feeling well or you're overtired. Well, you if you're not going to put yourself first, you can't complain, right? So
Very true. And I got to say, I totally agree about the naps. I I'm one of those people that it's like if I'm a night owl, and so and I'm constantly just busy, especially with
yeah,
creative stuff. I like to stay up
right.
at night, but if I get the opportunity to take me a 15, 20-minute, 30-minute nap, oh, I'm on it.
Yeah, hugely beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to actually, when I worked in the corporate environment, I actually used to, during my lunch, I would take half of my lunch break and I would go out to my car, or if I was on the motorcycle, I would go to a park. But I would always take about a 15 to 20-minute power nap every day.
Hmm.
During my lunch break, I would always take that just because, well, I would be up all night anyways, but
Hmm.
still.
Yeah,
um, so let's kind of talk a little bit about how this can be incorporated into the paranormal world.
sure, sure. So kind of, when I had my more profound experience with the person I met through my goddess circle, I was so intrigued by just how we connected and things that kind of heightened on me. So during my sessions with her, my sound got really eerily like intense. I mean, and we would do sessions outside. And when I tell you, I would watch the birds in her tree in her backyard, and it was like they were in my ear, and I could hear every single bird. And I felt like, so Reiki is a lot of no touch. I always say I don't touch, but if you do in-person sessions with me, I do. Not weird, but I do touch. So I don't touch past your shoulders, and I will touch your knees below.
Right.
But she really didn't touch, and so there were things that I could just. It's like everything kind of heightened during those sessions with her, and I decided, once I learned this, like, how can I use this with paranormal? Like, would this be something that would be, um, beneficial to locations? Because I don't, if you follow my paranormal journey, I don't have these big experiences that people speak about. And so I thought, well, maybe I'm just not as in tune as I think I am, and wanted to be able to, utilize something like Reiki an investigation. But it is also a great calmer when you're freaking yourself out when something is going on, to be able to kind of reel that energy back in, because you also don't want to feed it. Well, maybe some investigators want to feed that paranormal activity, but right, I don't want to feed into anything negative. So it's kind of a good, keep myself in check. So I do like to use Reiki if I'm feeling a little freaked out. I'll step off to the side for a moment and kind of go inward and calm myself. And everything's energy, so why wouldn't it work, right?
Exactly. And of course I know that you've had some great people on your podcast talking about vibrations and the different
Hmm.
theories. Do you think that
Hmm.
that kind of plays into it with the Reiki as well?
I would be interested to know how much. I would, my initial answer would be it has to, right? Like, how could it not? Um, but what is the actuality of that? I think you would have to do, some kind of controlled experiments where you were in a location that had a lot of activity, and then use different types of investigators. Maybe not kind of that one that's not somebody similar. Try to get people who are not similar, and
Mhm.
kind of utilize it and see if that does aid in making things ramped up or reeling it in.
Yeah, really try to control the excuse
Hmm.
me, really try to control the environment. That would be a really neat study
Hmm.
to go to a place and
Hmm.
set aside about 2 or 3 different times. So you're doing it, so that you
Hmm.
could kind of look at the environmental
Hmm.
controls there and the people you're doing it with, and see and do like a Reiki session, but also, especially if they were different styles of investigators, that would, we
Mhm.
need to set up an experiment like that.
Yeah. Well, I think I would also be interested if somebody were willing to do this. So because I have offered my services to investigators for after a little bit darker investigations, if they feel they need to shed something or if they just feel a little whacked after an investigation. And I have done that. I have done that for, a handful of investigators. So, you know, but what would be even more interesting to me is if you could have that said investigator go back to that location and have an actual Reiki session right there in person, not distant, but have an in-person session. And, because you are working with your circle that's always around you and their circle, what else can you call forward? And, would you also have any unique visions and or experiences with that location? I've not heard anybody talk about it. I don't think that I'm any kind of, breaking the glass ceiling with this. I just don't know, when it comes to the paranormal, I think a lot of people don't want to lose that edge during an investigation. And I don't know that I think Reiki would make you lose that edge. I think it gives you a different edge.
Mhm. Well, I mean, I have to really agree with that because, I mean, and I feel that that kind of, you would have to look at the intentions of the
Mhm.
investigation because, people go in for different reasons. You've got some that
Yeah.
go in just to do, just for that sort of experience, whether it be
Mhm.
kind of the heightened experience and the adrenaline rush and that sort of
Right.
thing. But then you've got the others that's going in for the scientific or the
Mhm.
metaphysical actual experience of it to see
Mhm.
what's going to attract it or what's or maybe even possibly repel that sort of thing. So I mean, personally, I think that would be just an awesome experiment to try because, I mean, why not?
Right.
Especially if you're at a location that's known to be super active, and and I'm often wondering, is the location influenced by what we come in with, or are our reactions influenced
Mhm.
by, the type of location that we're at? Who's influencing who and causing that
Right.
reaction?
But I mean, and you're exactly right, because if you think about this, when you walk into, I don't know, maybe when you're a kid and you walked into a friend's house and maybe a parent was really strict, right? Let's not even go abusive. Let's just go, they were really strict. It changes you, right? It changes how you kind of behave. And so I think, the reality is, I do believe that we bring and drop off lots of stuff to locations. I mean, I don't think that it's just the dead. I think that the living play a huge part in that, and grow those stories, right? Because a lot of people want to have that one experience that has been spoken about on some of these popular locations. And so they want to fit in, they want to have the same thing happen, whether I'm not saying they're purposely maybe embellishing, but right. So if you want it bad enough, you'll get it.
Mhm.
And so how could that not, change things? And I've seen, when we kind of first started going to locations, my VP paranormal team, the reality is, um, I've seen people use uh, tuning forks. I've seen people
Mhm.
use singing bowls. I had brought singing bowls a few times to rooms that they've claimed had vortexes in them or portals. And so, any of that, right, can change the feeling in a room. And I will tell you this, if I'm a big believer in crystal bowls. So
Mhm.
I'm a huge Reiki fan and I am a huge crystal bowls fan. Huge. I don't practice any other energy healing at all. Those are the two that I stick with. But I will tell you this with crystal bowls. You can do it yourself. We've done it with water and we've done it with beer.
Mhm.
You
Ah.
can you can drink your water or your beer, and you choose the bowl you want to put it in, and you do the mallet, and you do a little whatever, and you let the vibrations hit it up. And when you take that next sip, it completely changes everything about that water or that beer. I've even
Huh.
tried it with pot. I mean, you change the makeup of this stuff, and so if we're doing that with tangible things, right? Like if you can do it with water and you're tasting it. And a lot of
Mhm.
times I don't when I host crystal bowls at my house, it's one of my favorite things. I'm always like, okay, we're gonna do the water trick now with everybody. And so I will say to somebody like, here, take a drink of water, and they will. And I say, okay, now pick a bowl, and they'll pick a bowl, and then you put your glass of water in there. Even if they don't realize what you're doing and they take a drink again, you say, how did that taste to you? And they all say the same thing. That tastes very different.
Well, and
Usually
see, and
better.
and we're like, and what's our percentage of water? I mean, humans have such a high percentage of water
Yeah.
themselves. So why would that not change?
E Exactly, and I think, as you talk about things like this, I think what, really resonated with me especially the more I got into learning the history and what Dr. Usui was actually going for, is that this is all really, really simple stuff. We are simpler than we make ourselves out to be, but we're but not to say that we're not magical, because we
Mhm.
absolutely are. And I think your point is exactly right. If it can change a glass of water, why can it not change you? And that's exactly the point. It does. It changes you. And so, I think when you start using it in paranormal, for me, paranormal has become very personal. I think paranormal is a very personal journey. I think it says a lot about yourself. It says a lot of, your perceptions, your beliefs. And so if you added something like Reiki to those investigations, right, it would just be part of your personal journey, and maybe not something that you would want to put on YouTube or social media, because, it's for your own part of your learning, your education of this, right? And
Mhm.
maybe it does nothing. Maybe you pick nothing up from it. It's not for everybody. Again, if you're not ready to do the work, then I would say Reiki is not your thing.
Right. Well, and you hit on a really good point a few minutes ago talking about just how simple,
Yeah.
and I think that's probably one of our biggest hurdles. I mean, you see it with, everything, from, um, Reiki, you see it in different
Mhm.
types of religions. I mean, most things are extremely simple, but as humans, we have to complicate things. It can't be as simple as, you know,
Mhm.
asking, or as simple as, taking that step. We feel like, oh, for something to be good, it has to be more, it has to be complex. So I think that that's probably our one of our biggest stumbling blocks, is the fact that we're constantly complicating things. Oh, and I think either myself or Sarah's frozen. There we go. Either you frozen or I just blew your mind, one or the other.
I think you blew my mind. I think you blew my mind. Somebody here doesn't want me to know what you just said. They were like, "Wait a minute, that's too much for Sarah to handle
They're
right now."
making it
So,
too complex. No, no, I don't know where it cut off at, but, what I was saying is basically, as humans, we
mhm,
complicate things,
we do.
whether it be talking about Reiki, talking about different
Mhm,
different forms of religion.
mhm,
I mean, we most things are simple, and most things
mhm,
are just as simple as asking, or just,
mhm,
doing that one little simple step, and,
mhm.
we just complicate things, and I think that that's probably our biggest stumbling block.
And I think this is where, uh, the more you study something like a Reiki, and especially if you're on top of honoring, what Dr. Usui sort of had in mind, because he himself was a Buddhist. This is something where, you know, when we're hungry, we don't eat. We'll push it off, right? Or we don't eat because maybe we think we need to lose 5 pounds, or we need to look a certain way, or we're constantly worried how something's going to come off, or we're worried that, look, I'm a meat eater. I don't really care what anybody else thinks about that. This is what my body requires and wants. And so that's for me to decide. That's not for anybody else to decide. And I think we do too many things for everybody else, right? And so you're exactly right. I think that we take away the simplicity. When we're tired, we don't take a rest. I know that sometimes we can't. I know sometimes you either have a baby in your hand, or you're at work, but we have forgotten how to say, I need help.
Mhm.
I need a moment. And that's okay. It's okay to take those moments. It's okay to say, you know what, I need, somebody to give me the proverbial slap across the face. Again, it's something that I needed last week, or the beginning of this week, was just needing to have that moment to be like, okay, you're spiraling out of control, and you're feeding into it with a lot of, I don't want to say stupidity, but a little bit of laziness, I will say. And I think that's where it comes down to, because it's like you're focusing on something because it's giving you an immediate, maybe, you're satiating something immediately, but in the long run, you're just making it harder for yourselves. And I think we do that often. I mean, if you're hungry, eat. Now, should you sit down to 2 boxes of donuts? No. you know, but if you want a donut, I think and that's what your body is wanting. I think it's okay. And I think that's the other thing, though, like using Reiki in paranormal, my other thought process with doing it in a location, is, if these are intelligent energies that are at these locations, is this something that they would be interested in as well? Because if you're calling in other spirit guides or any energy to come forward to help, would they as well want to aid in that or be interested in something like that? I don't know. I mean, I think we have such a misunderstanding, because I'm split.
Mhm.
Paranormally, you go into a location and you're looking for a ghost. But when I'm sitting down to an in-person Reiki and or distance session, I don't look at what I'm calling on as ghosts. Suddenly they're energy. So it can be a little confusing sometimes. And that's why I think there is this weird melding for me going on at this point in my life, and just understanding what energy actually is and what it is trying to accomplish. And so I find Reiki to be a great teacher, for that stuff, in my opinion, for me.
No, I totally agree, and I know we can't really say a whole lot about it at this point, but I know you and I have kind of talked
Mhm.
about an experiment that, we're gonna try with, some
Mhm.
distance Reiki. I know you have worked with me on, multiple distance Reiki sessions that, have been just wonderful and
Oh,
unique experiences in and of themselves. So I definitely recommend, when Sarah puts a call out and says, anyone interested in trying a distance session or an in-person session, I definitely
mhm.
recommend you guys take her up on the call, because
Oh, thank you.
she has helped me multiple times, and they've all been distance sessions. And from Michigan to Tennessee, it's been definitely, kind of a eye-opening, mind-blowing experiences. And like you said, not every time has been like, oh,
No.
but there has always been something. And so yeah, I definitely recommend that. And we'll, kind of take that a step further with some experiments here in the near future that we may be able to talk about soon.
Yeah, I'm looking forward
um
to that.
yeah, most definitely. So I wanna come over here to the chat room for a few minutes,
Okay.
because, you guys have just been fantastic with your comments and
Aw.
questions. And, so Sandra says, "I've used energy healing type situations at paranormal investigations. It's a very interesting experience." So, thank you, Sandra, for
Yeah.
sharing that.
And I do, I think that it gives you something different. I think Sandra's right. It's interesting whether it falls into what you expected. I don't know, but I think that you definitely can get some interesting outcomes from that.
Absolutely. And, I like what you were saying, and I'll get back to the questions here in a second, but I like what you were saying about, you know, um, experiencing the energies there at these locations.
Mhm,
Because for me personally, just under my personal belief system, I believe that what we're dealing with is energy,
mhm,
depending on what you call it. I've always, rather than feeling like the soul of the person is there, I feel like it's their energy.
mhm,
And, some people believe they're different, some believe they're the same. I believe there is a difference. But do you think that? So you have your intelligent and you have your residual energies.
mhm,
It would be
mhm,
interesting to see if it could manipulate a residual, or at least trigger a residual
mhm.
type energy.
Well, I mean, my guess would be, if you think about, what you're kind of stirring up and what if you even believe in like the living, as an investigator, you walk in and how people will say, like how, even like when you talk about how Mike Ricksucker speaks about shadow figures and how some people vibrate at a different thing. So say you come in and your energy just happens to match or was something similar to what that residual was. Well, I think that it all feeds each other, right? I think that you just when you have those connections, you have those connections, whether it's all, I mean, to me, all energy is intelligent. I know we use the words residual and intelligent, but I think when you're working with something like Reiki and you're really focusing on something like that, it all becomes one intelligent energy, because there is nothing more intelligent than energy, in my opinion. I mean, that's the whole universe is made of energy. So, is it going to perhaps answer your questions? Perhaps not, but what are you gaining from that? I mean, maybe it is that, something like that changes that location, and maybe location owners, and you're a location owner, maybe that's something you wouldn't even want done in your location. Would it, I don't want to say it would knock anything out, because I think that if an energy is somewhere, it chooses to be there. I don't think any energy is locked in.
No.
But would that, would a location owner feel that way it would be clearing? I don't personally feel that it's a clearing thing, but maybe that would be something you wouldn't want to change your location. I don't know.
I personally myself, I mean, when I think about it, and maybe it's something for a deeper thought, but
Yeah.
just at first, kind of discussing it, I don't feel it's clearing.
Okay.
Because I feel like you kind of nailed it talking about, residual and
Hmm.
intelligent. I feel like there has to be intelligence with residual, because
Hmm.
even if it is, the theory is that it's just kind of playing in
Right.
on a loop, something has to trigger it. And so to be
Right.
triggered, I feel there would have to be a form of intelligence there to trigger
Hmm.
that. You know,
Right.
what can you create to trigger it? So, um, I don't see that as, personally, I just kind of see it as
Hmm.
uh, another form of investigating, I
Hmm.
guess. Another tool in your toolbox.
Yeah. I would be curious, like if somebody did, I'm just trying to think of something that's like what's a major, uh, sort of negative location. Of course, I'm kind of sitting in all light area here, that I'm really not thinking of negative stuff right now. But
Right.
if you just chose one of the many that are out there that have those claims, I
Like
would be
Hinsdale
curious.
House or something.
Oh, like Hinsdale. Yeah, like perfect. Like Hinsdale.
Yeah.
It would be really interesting to work with an investigator that has had multiple negative experiences there, if they would be willing to relax enough. And that would be the other thing, is to understand. And that's one thing that I do love um, about Reiki, is because you start to understand the control you truly only have on yourself. And when I say that, that doesn't mean bad things don't come up or anxious feelings don't come up. The control comes when you realize that you can get yourself through it, or
Mhm.
you can shorten those lengths of time that you have those feelings.
Mhm.
So it would be interesting to work with somebody, if they'd be willing to go to those locations that they've had those experiences and lay them down and say, okay, now you're going to work on you and understand how
Mhm.
much, because I do have a very big belief in that we play such a big part in the experience that we have.
Mhm.
And, could you now go in there and feel, okay, this is what could be going on. This could be the negative side of it, but I'm not going to
Mhm.
contribute to it. I'm going to control that.
Yeah, and personally myself, I think that's why I like to sleep at some of these locations.
Hmm.
Because I mean, I've had some of the best sleeps, when I go
Right.
to some of these places, and I don't know, maybe I'm completely exhausted, but like Brushy Mountain with its negative reputation, I slept very well. I
Right.
ended up getting some great stuff. Same with Revenant Acres, and I have found that the activity has been completely different, because I don't
Hmm.
want to sleep the whole time, obviously. But if I'm going to be there for 12 hours,
Right.
why not lay down? I mean, I did it there at Post Town when we investigated for like, I think what I slept maybe an hour or something, but
Yeah.
just to kind of see how
Hmm.
if by some chance something changes as essentially kind of using your body as a little bit of a trigger item, but also going into that relaxed state, it's really interesting how the spirits and the entities in
Hmm.
these locations actually react to you
Right.
being there. Sometimes it's kind of like,
A
what is she
magnet.
doing? Yeah. Yeah, and other times it's almost like, I don't know if you kinda take yourself onto another
Hmm.
plane, and
Hmm.
maybe, I kinda call it lazy investigating a little bit because,
Hmm.
essentially it's like you're just there, you
Yeah.
got the cameras rolling, you got the audio rolling, but maybe on a subconscious level, maybe you are actually interacting with the
Right.
spirits there on another plane that you don't know. All I do know is that the activity is intensified, and it's very, very different when I sleep at a location versus the activity that I'm getting when I'm, actively investigating.
Right, right, and I think that that's um, I think that's a very interesting take because maybe you are performing a bit of a self-healing because when you're tired, you do find your space and you go and you say you have the best sleep, so maybe
Yeah.
that is you listening to what your body needs at that moment, and, you're like it very well could be a form of a Reiki or energy healing for yourself that you don't realize, and again, I mean, you how could you not attract things during those moments?
Yeah.
My guess would be you absolutely well, you have proof.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, you have solid proof here that, you have attracted things and, I've heard those EVPs with my own ears that there's no denying what those things are saying to you. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and it's kind of I always look back and I'm like, "It's good that I'm asleep because
yeah,
I don't know how I would react in some of those situations."
yeah,
I wanna get back to the comments
sure,
here before we
sure.
wrap things up. D Hoot says, "I had a full-blown panic attack a few nights ago. Can Reiki help with that?"
So I do believe that they can. And again, it's not going to be that you're going to get one Reiki session and you suddenly are like, I don't have them anymore. I think people who have a tendency to have panic attacks or anxiety attacks, when and I do encourage, just FYI, if I do sessions, I'm a big encourager to learn the art yourself. I will always be willing to do sessions with you, but I always encourage people to learn what Reiki is and to learn the meditations for themselves because um, everybody should know how to do it. I think this should be something that is taught in a younger, I think between tapping and meditations and Reiki, I think these are the things we should be fighting for in our schools. I think you would have kids with a lot less anxiety issues. I think you'd have kids with a lot less confusion because you're asking people when you're doing these certain activities such as meditation and or Reiki, you are asking to go inward. You are not looking for outside validation. You are looking for inside validation. So I think these would be hugely beneficial. So yes, Dihud, I do believe that if you did utilize Reiki in some form, that you would realize that even though the attacks may not go 100% away, you would start to realize they shorten or they're not
Mhm.
happening as often. That is at least what I have heard from people that do suffer from them that I have worked with. It either they realize, okay, wait, I have the tools and I can take
Mhm.
this time to work on myself, or they can reach out to somebody and they feel that those have either decreased, um, either in the length of the actual attack and or the amount of times that it happens.
Yeah, and because, you bring up a really good point with that because, I mean, anxiety attacks is something that
Hmm.
I suffer from, and, I don't take any medicine or anything for it, but, it's really hard, and
Hmm.
and for me, the anxiety attacks are worse at night,
Hmm.
and I notice and I've started to notice different times that they're worse, but, it's such a, I'm trying to think of my words on how to explain it, but you get inside your head
Hmm.
so much, and it feels like such a loss of control.
Right.
Whereas Reiki is, at least from my understanding, is that self-awareness and taking that control back, you
That
know?
is that is exactly those words to me fit the art of what that is to a T, because I think that we have often given our power away. We too often hand it to everybody else. You're making me mad. You're making me anxious. You're triggering me. I mean, these are things we've heard for a long time, and we're hearing our kids say this constantly. I can't be in class, it triggers me. I need to have that thing on the back of my phone, a fidget spinner, or I need that little piece of, because everything's triggering. And to me, it's not as simple as saying you need to do the work, but it's because instead of saying stop, I can't control what that person is doing. You absolutely can't. And you can't ask everybody around you to not trigger you. You're eventually going to stumble upon a trigger.
Mhm.
So, what Reiki does do to exactly what you said, it tells you, wait a minute, you know what I can do? I can step outside of this. I can
Mhm.
get back to myself. I can see where am I feeling tight, and
Mhm.
on my page, if anybody follows Reiki Next Door, I often put in unhook your shoulders from your ears, unclench your jaws, right? Relax
Mhm.
your muscles just a little bit. And a lot of times people will say, oh my God, my shoulders were up to my ears. Well, yeah, they are, because we walk around like
Mhm.
this all the time. It's like,
Mhm.
just take a breath and just stop and realize, you can't control shitty situations
Mhm.
at all, but you can get through them, and you have gotten through them 100% of the time. You're here with us, right? You're here right with us. So just remember, you can control how you're reacting to the situation. That's not going to stop certain things from happening, but you can at least go into that awareness and breathe through it. And,
Mhm.
again, I don't want people to think that I'm saying, like, you can totally control your anxiety with that,
Right.
but you can at least not play into it,
Yeah, and
right?
make it worse.
And make it
Shift your
worse.
focus, really.
Right.
It's
Shift
it's
your focus.
shifting the focus, because
Yeah.
if you're focusing on the attack that's happening,
Mhm.
it's going to get your heart rate up. It's going to get, I get to where I can't feel my hands and my heart rate runs away from me. And so it's you shift that focus, because as you think about your heart racing, you start thinking, oh, I
Mhm.
can't breathe, and it
Right.
just gets worse. And it's like, okay, I'm having a heart attack.
Yeah.
I cannot get past this. But eventually, if you can just
Mhm.
shift that focus onto something else, onto breathing. I saw a comment once where it was talking about, you know, look around the
Good point.
room and try to find, 5 things that you can see,
Right.
4 things that you can smell,
Right.
3 things that you can touch. And if you can just really shift that, or find someone, that you can talk to that can help calm you down, it truly is about getting that control back and shifting that focus. And eventually, all of a sudden you realize it's like, okay, my heart has
Yeah.
slowed down, my breathing is back to normal.
And, I think that it also, to your point, it's also kind of like, think about, when you post that post on Facebook, like, I was at the grocery store and this person was being such a jerk, and I can't believe that I was just trying to get my stuff done. And then what do you have? Everybody piling on saying, yeah, what an asshole. They shouldn't have done that. And you should have told them. And what does that do? That feeds into your negative emotion, and you suddenly get really, really triggered, when all you had to do was not post it on Facebook. All you had to do was take a step and realize, when people do things outside in the world, about 99.9% of the time, it is so not about you. And stop taking it so personal. You could have totally eliminated adding to that, distraction in your life, when what your body probably needed was, okay, wait, we have a saying in our house that my husband loves to, he said this to me years ago, and it is stuck. And we have taught this to our daughters. And that is, you're going to meet a dick, right? You're going to meet a dick during
Mhm.
the day. It's going to happen. But if all you're doing is meeting dicks during the day, you better ask yourself if you're the dick, because there's just not that many that are running into you. So, I've had those days, and I've utilized that. I've been out during a day where it's like, this store clerk wasn't nice, and this wasn't, and that car driver. And then I'll stop and go, you know what? Go home. You're clearly not in a good state of mind. So and I'll go home. And nothing is so important, going to the mall or going to do whatever, or, just isn't that important. Go home and find out what the hell you might need. And it's usually a nap or a meal, right? Or quiet time. And
Mhm.
so I know people don't like to hear that it's simple, but a lot of the times it is just that simple.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is, and, uh, she makes the comment, she said, talking about putting on headphones and listening to
Yeah.
old time radio. I can say for me, something that really works well, and it does aid in the meditation. I'm a huge believer in binaural beats,
Yes.
and I hope I'm saying that right. But I listen to that, and you can feel there's
Mhm.
times, especially if I'm listening to the lower your heart rate, and
Yep.
I can feel myself go, it's not so much going to I mean, going out of it, going instantly
Yeah.
from a panic attack to out of it. I almost feel like I'm levitating almost
Yeah.
because you just start to feel so light, and it really does on these different frequency levels change your vibration or change your frequency. I
It
mean,
does.
that's why they say cats purr,
Yep.
because they're purring on this certain frequency, and it's used not just for contentment, but it's
Yep.
also used for healing and,
Absolutely.
when they're hungry and that sort of thing. So it's just amazing. So I definitely, Dehu would recommend go
Yes.
online. Because you can find binaural beats at you don't have to know the frequency,
No.
but, you
Try them
can
all out.
search. Exactly.
Try them all
Because
out.
some of them are for creativity, some are
Yeah.
for ADHD, some are for, sleeping, lowering heart rate, stomach issues,
Yeah.
cleansing.
Yeah.
It's I definitely recommend that. And, let's see, I just wanna make sure I don't miss anything. And Dr. Sumner says, "We have a place in Tennessee that you can experiment until your heart's content."
Oh,
Just
I love
saying.
that. Thank you, Dr. Sumner. And you know what? I might take you up on that. Maybe I'll get you on the table. Maybe I'll have to pack my table. I am driving, so
Bring your table, Sarah.
I'll bring my table and maybe we'll do a little. I always love doing different personality types because I think for my own, just for, I don't want to say for my own ego, but just for those moments to watch people just sort of open up. It's kind of like when you're in paranormal and if you run into somebody that says they don't believe in ghosts and then the next thing you know they're telling you a ghost story and it's like I just love that, right? So it's the same with Reiki energy. I love if somebody is like, oh, that's magic or hocus pocus, I don't believe in it, but they'll either do a session with me and their minds are kind of like, well, I was seeing this color or I felt this color, or I'll say, I kind of felt the need to be in this area of your body and I felt something
Mhm.
very cold. And they'll say, well, I have an old injury that flares up from time to time. So if you feel cold, that's older. If you feel heat, that's a newer trauma, either emotional and or physical. So it is a very interesting thing. And also just to put this out there to people, and I will say, hopefully I'm not sharing anything too personal here, Miranda, but when I did get to
Mm.
spend some time with you in October, we traveled together, and as you dropped me off at the airport, we hugged, and
Mhm.
Miranda's a fantastic hugger. And I will just say, and it was a nice, big, long hug. And hugs
Mhm.
are one of the top forms of Reiki. And so if you
Yes.
have that person in your life or people that your friends or your loved ones that are always willing to hug, and that's always me. Like if somebody will hug me, I'm like, I'm in, let's hug. It is an amazing form of Reiki healing. And so, even if you're just feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm having that moment, and you have somebody
Mhm.
that is near and dear that you can reach out to, even just getting it's got to be more than 15 seconds, and you will feel the benefits from that right away.
It's funny you say that because, the podcast that I was listening to the other day was talking about that, and it was
Yeah.
saying that the hug is one of the greatest forms of Reiki,
Yeah,
and,
it truly
yeah.
is. It truly is. And especially because, especially if it's somebody that you truly connect with. And,
Mhm.
we had these great, 4 or 5 days to connect
Mhm.
in person. And so, it was just like that last big hug and having so much fun and all these deep and crazy, thoughtful talks that we had. It was just like,
14 hours of driving
it was just
conversation.
that's right. But it was like one of those like, it was just like a release, a relief, and I am a big, giant, huge believer in that. So yeah, I think if you know, and especially when there's intention behind those hugs, and I think that's
Yeah.
why you got to find those people that are good huggers and they've got great intention behind them. You'll get great healing.
Transfer of energy.
Transfer of energy, baby.
Yep. And let's see here. Like I said, just making sure I'm not missing anything. And David says that is exactly what I needed to hear right now. I'm glad to hear that,
Aw.
David.
Oh, good. Well, you know, if you can, there are Reiki healers all over. There are Reiki healers that are a little bit more on the spiritualistic side. You can find some that are more traditional, like myself, and then you can find those that are in it for all the wrong reasons. They're all over, but you will find the Reiki healer that is best for you. But you are your best Reiki healer. Just don't let anybody ever take that away from you. Whoever you use, just remember it's you.
And if folks want to follow along with because I absolutely love your post that you do
Oh, thank you.
in Reiki Next Door, and hopefully hopefully it pulled up on the screen here.
I think I see it.
So
Yep.
yeah, so you guys definitely Sarah's got a group, Reiki Next Door, and you know, it always seems like the stuff you post it speaks directly to you, you know, at least just speaking from my own personal experiences of just, you know, the lessons and these are lessons you're working through, correct?
Yeah. So sometimes people might reach out to me. I've had actually more than a few that have reached out to me and said, like, is this about me? Or, and I promise you, they are about me. But they're about us all, right? Like I am daily working on my lessons, Buddhist and Reiki, and so and otherwise, just as a normal human being. So what I post is not ever meant to be preachy. It is always meant to be as in this is what I'm doing. Sometimes I share something personal. Sometimes I share something that might just be a general. But when I post something, it's because I felt drawn to post it or it was something that came up for me. And a lot of times, lessons actually just kind of, I keep it simple. If there is a lesson that has repeated itself more than twice in a day, that is my lesson. And I will just tell you more than not, it's always right because, again, the universe doesn't make mistakes. So it's usually because it's something that's probably in the back of my mind and I'm just ignoring. And then once I bring it to the forefront and work on it, it's settled and I can move forward. And yes, I stumble, and yes, I will start again, as we all do. So I think it's a good group. It's all meant to be more about sharing and supporting. And I have as much to learn from those that are on the page as I hope that they can learn with me,
And
not from me.
and are you and we're about to wrap things up,
Sure.
but are you are you accepting in person or distance Reiki at this time?
I am. So, if you're local, which, if you're in my Detroit metro area or whatever, like my friends all know and my community members know, they can reach out to me. If you want distant, yes, just either message me. You can DM me or email me, and absolutely, we can do distance together. I do not charge. I There is always a debate on how that needs to be handled, but my payment of Reiki is usually just with the kindness that the folks that I've worked with have paid me with. So at this time, I am offering my Reiki, and I just ask for kindness and support in return.
Wonderful, wonderful. So we'll make sure because I know this will. I'll go in and update any show notes with the Reiki Next Door group, and of course I've got Sarah tagged in there.
Awesome.
I've got her name in there, and then I've also, if you want to hear more from her, she has her weekly live stream with the lovely Dee Dee on the X, correct?
That is
Monday.
correct. Yep, the UNX on Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah, so definitely go out there, show those lovely ladies some support. And I feel like I need to have like a voice distorter on you right now, Sarah, because this is
I know, and you know what? I don't think I can even do this. If you guys could see the beautiful colors in the sky right now, the sun went down, and where I am staying, we're right in the middle of all the red rocks here, and like
Oh,
much of the places in Sedona, but we are like right in the bowl, and I am on the sunset side of this location, and so they keep everything very dim, and it is amazing, is all I can say.
you may be able to flip your screen there
Yeah, let me
and
see if I
show
can
us
do
the
that so I can
sunset.
show. Let me see
What
if
a
I can do
perfect
that.
ending.
I know, right? Let's see if I can. Hopefully I don't do any. See, how would I do this? How do you think oh,
Uh,
camera, probably, right? And there it's off. So is there not a way to flip it? Let's see.
it may
Camera.
not. It may
See,
be
I don't.
different when you're on this.
Yeah.
So
See
you
if I
may
can
just
give
have
you
to
this
turn
shot.
it around, yeah, and
Let's
see.
see. Let's see. Can I give you? Let's see if I can see.
Oh, wow. I'm starting to
Like it
see some
over.
color.
Let me go over this side here. This place has been so amazing, and I'm going on a stargazing tour, and
Wow.
um, they teach you how to spot UFOs.
Nice.
They give you night vision goggles, and so we're gonna have some fun doing that. So, um,
Those
yeah, this
colors are
is.
beautiful.
Oh, I mean, I can't even show. I mean, if I could even, I can't even. I wish I could just give you like the I'm not
Wow.
even giving you the because I can't. Here's the thing: I don't have my reading glasses on, so I can only see what I can see. uh, but yeah, this was a much needed trip, even though it's a senior spring break. This was a much needed trip at the perfect time, and I think it was the perfect for this interview. So
Perfect timing. I couldn't have planned it
yeah,
better myself.
couldn't have planned it better.
Yeah, I was worried when I heard you were out there in, Arizona. I thought, "Well, she's gonna be so busy, we may
No,
have to reschedule." So I
no,
really
mm-mm.
appreciate you taking the time to come on tonight and,
Always for you.
share your journey with us, and I always get something out of it.
Oh, thank you. Well, you know what? It's been such an honor to work with you. Every time that I've had an honor to do it with you, and honestly, I appreciate you letting me blab on about it. I don't get to talk about
Absolutely.
this part of my journey very much, so
Absolutely. And thank you all so much over in the chat room for your comments, sharing your stories and also your questions. We definitely appreciate you guys hanging with us for this past hour. So, like I said, got a couple big things going on in April there at the historic Scott County Jail. Got a full lineup here for the month of April for every Thursday night on the Ghost Biker Garage. I'm just pulling my calendar up here, and I'm really excited because next week I'm going to be having the guys from Fallen Hour
ooh,
podcast on. Yes, they were supposed to have been on. I guess it was my second show after Steve Stockton and. They had some illness and some stuff come up, and so they weren't able to come on. But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think they're from out in Montana.
okay.
So yeah, they're going to be talking about their podcast. They're going to be
Oh,
sharing some of their stories growing up on the Crow Reservation,
oh,
and yeah, so going to be some very interesting stories from those guys. I know they've had some amazing paranormal experiences that they've shared on their show. So next week we've got them coming up. And then on the 14th, I'm going to have David Crider, who's from out in New Mexico. I think we're taking it out west
you're taking it out west now.
for the month of April. We're going out west. If you guys watched, I believe it was our fourth episode of the Jailhouse Informant, we actually had David on. He runs Southwest Expeditions and the paranormal there at the Donna Anna. Excuse me, I know I'm butchering it. The Donna Anna Courthouse and Jail, and so he's doing something very similar to what Dr. Sumner and I have done out at the historic Scott County Jail. And so he shared some of the different stories on the show. So he's actually going to come on and share some of his paranormal experiences and what he's doing there. I think on the Jailhouse Informant, he talked a little bit more about the tourism aspect. We're going to be talking more about the paranormal aspect on mine. And then April 21st, as we get into Enigma Cons, I'm going to be having Mr. Russ Bailey from Dark Sky Paranormal. I'm actually going to get to meet him out there at St. Albans. And so he's going to come on. We're going to talk about it the day before we go out there. And then also at the end of the month, I have Mr. Greg Coase. And so he is, he's from, I believe he's from the Wisconsin, Chicago area. So a lot of great folks coming up here during the month of April that you guys are going to want to definitely tune in for. Anything big going on with you, Sarah, that's coming up?
We have a demonologist coming on, Paranormally Blonde, next Monday. That should be sort of fun since I'll be getting in at 6:30 in the morning from this trip. So, I don't know what kind of energy I'll be bringing to that conversation, but
Perfect
it
for
will
a
be interesting.
demonologist.
Probably perfect for that scenario. And then we've got some stuff planned. Yeah, we're starting to fill up April here, and past that, you know what? I kind of live moment to moment, so
I love it.
that I know poor Dee Dee is like, we gotta. But I kind of just like doing the moment to moment. So we'll see what happens, right? Like just join in and watch what happens. That's what you really got to do.
That's right. That should be your slogan. Join in and watch what
That's
happens.
right.
We'll learn
That's
it,
right.
see it together.
We'll see it together. Let's see how this goes down.
There you go. And well, again, thank you guys so much. And, if you want to book a flashlight tour or a ghost hunt out of the dates that we still have available for here in April at the historic Scott County Jail, definitely hit www.historicscottcojail.com. Check out the events section or call us at 423-663-5353 and get one of those dates before they sell out. And come visit us on our April 16th bike blessing, and also a lot of different ghost biker events that we've got showing up. I actually just registered for one that's coming up in October at the Scream Chamber. So we're working on getting that stuff posted and getting those lined out for the rest of the year too. So definitely keep an eye out on those and check out the Jailhouse Informant coming up this Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time after Sarah and Dee Dee's shows, Paranormally Blonde at 7. So spend your evening with us on Monday evenings, and then we'll see you here next Thursday as well. So I hope everyone has a great night, and we'll talk to you soon.